from the beginning, and action.
There have been many fantastic directors working in Hollywood over the years, ranging from Martin Scorsese to Alfred Hitchcock to Stanley Kubrick. But no one comes even remotely close to the level of greatness of Steven Spielberg. He's the biggest legend of all time behind the camera. But what is it that makes him so good? Let's check out some of his trademarks. Despite him being the best ever, it's surprisingly hard to pinpoint what those are exactly. If you watch a Quentin Tarantino movie, you'll notice his style in every scene. But with Steven, it's much trickier. There is, however, one shot he's very famous for, and that's called the Spielberg Face. When there's a big moment happening in a film, the camera doesn't zoom in on that event, but rather on an actor's face, so we see how it makes him or her feel. This was first introduced in Jaws and was revolutionary at the time. Another recurring element in his work is airplanes. The Temple of Doom, Empire of the Sun, Catch Me If You Can. Once you start paying attention, you'll notice that Steven's movies are just full of them.
It's too much. I'm fascinated with airplanes. I'm too obsessed by them. I have to stop with the airplanes and start finding some other way to express my interest in flying. Yeah, I am, and I don't fly myself. I'm actually afraid to fly, but that continues to feed the furnace of my enthusiasm for my dreams of flying, and we're making movies about flying. It's another way to embrace my fears of flying.
Also, broken families are often found at the heart of the director's films. From Close Encounters to The Color Purple to War of the Worlds, none of them offer good parenting advice. Or how about Indiana Jones' relationship with his father in The Last Crusade? Happy families don't really exist in Spielberg's world. Speaking of which, 1989's The Last Crusade also marked the first time Steven wanted to work with an actual movie star in the form of Sean Connery. The director broke through in '75 with Jaws, but preferred lesser-known actors at the start. It's hard to imagine now, but Harrison Ford wasn't that well known before being cast as Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I've never wanted to work with stars because I was afraid of losing control to the stars. I had some kind of idea that when you work with a star, it means you have to share power, you have to share directorial ideas and all that. And what I discovered was just the opposite. Sean Connery, when I made Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, was the first star I've ever worked with. And he was wonderful with me, and he listened to everything I had to say, and he actually followed my direction. I was amazed that my first movie star was listening to me, and then I realized that Sean Connery was a very confident actor. So I actually discovered that I had more trouble with actors on other movies who only had maybe done one or two films before. And because they were so insecure, I might have had much more conflict with semi-unknown actors as opposed to movie stars. So I learned a lesson.
Another thing you may notice in Spielberg's work is that characters keep walking in and out of the shots. This doesn't just apply to the extras, but also to the main actors. And Steven isn't afraid of a challenge, resulting in some of the most complex camera movements, angles, and shots in cinema. Especially ones with reflections in them are tricky to pull off, like those from Minority Report. Also, his movies often open with an emphasis on cool artifacts. Think of the golden head in Raiders of the Lost Ark, or the fossilized amber in Jurassic Park. When praising Spielberg's work, we kind of feel like there are some of his frequent collaborators we have to honor as well. Most notably, cinematographer Janusz Kaminski, editor Michael Kahn, producer Kathleen Kennedy, and composer John Williams. There are also two genres we can put 90% of the filmmaker's work into. Heavy historical drama like Schindler's List, Bridge of Spies, or Munich on the one side, versus lighthearted fantasy and sci-fi on the other, with titles such as Ready Player One, E.T., and the BFG. Never in the history of cinema has a director been as influential as Steven Spielberg. He almost single-handedly invented the whole concept of blockbusters, and is responsible for more classics than anyone else ever.
Filmmaking, it's a work.
He's simply the best. And Steven, if you're watching, thank you for all your wonderful films.
And cut, good.